You're listening to The Modern Mainframe, BMC's intelligent C optimization and transformation podcast, covering the latest trends and issues in the mainframe and how BMC AMI solutions can help you make change your competitive advantage. Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Modern Mainframe. I'm Matt Dallaire. Here with me today to talk about mainframe observability and how it's more than just monitoring are Intellyx Managing Director Jason Bloomberg, BMC Vice President of Research and Development David Jeffries, and BMC Director of Product Management Alan Warhurst. Jason, Dave, Alan, thanks for joining us today.
Hello. Thank you, Matt.
Jason, I'd like to set the stage for the discussion a little bit. As the mainframe platform is connected to new and diverse workloads, including cloud, AI, analytics, what are some of the specific opportunities and challenges organizations face when it comes to not only effectively managing their mainframe infrastructure, but optimizing it?
Yeah, that's an important question because organizations that have mainframes are leveraging them for new and different workloads that the platform really hasn't seen before, and that's opening up whole new opportunities for these organizations, but also new challenges. So a part of the story is that in addition to all of the traditional workloads, core transaction processing and the other things the mainframe has done well for decades, we're now adding AI-based workloads and other data manipulation workloads and interacting with the cloud and supporting APIs, which brings a whole new context to how the mainframe participates in this broader landscape of distributed computing, where it's no longer us versus them, host-based versus distributed. It's now distributed cloud-native computing where the mainframe is a core participant. And this changes how we need to consider the mainframe, how we need to manage the mainframe, and then how we need to monitor and observe the mainframe capabilities as well.
How do you see the role of mainframes evolving within enterprises, particularly in terms of supporting digital initiatives and addressing expanding data requirements?
Well, a great example of how the mainframe supports digital initiatives is sort of the standard example, mobile banking, right? Everybody wants to bank on their phones now. So there, whether it's consumers or even now business banking, you can log in on your phone, you can access transactions, you can deal with other mainframe-based data on a real-time basis. And this is now expected, right? So we have this business requirement, this business context of a mobile environment for all the interactions the customers have with mainframe-based data. So this drives a new real-time context. It drives whole new cybersecurity requirements that we didn't have before when the mainframe was more of a closed environment. And then it also drives new data requirements, right? On one hand, we have the users interacting directly with mainframe-based data. We also have the businesses who now need to manage and gain value from the data within their mainframe in new ways that reflect not just the core transactions, but the broader context of how users on both the consumer and the business side are interacting with mainframe-based data. So now we have a whole new opportunities to leverage mainframe-based data both on the host as well as in the broader cloud world. Including leveraging AI to extract even more value from the data that organizations have on the mainframe.
And you authored a white paper entitled Mainframe Observability More Than Monitoring, and I'll include a link in the show notes. It states that traditional operational techniques like monitoring are necessary but no longer sufficient. Can you explain why mainframe monitoring by itself is not sufficient in today's IT environments, despite its longstanding importance? And what implications does this have for mainframe operators?
Yeah, monitoring, of course, has been a core part of managing mainframe operations for many years and focuses on the behavior of particular parts of the mainframe, particular systems within or applications within the mainframe. So in order to give operators a way of observing a mainframe performance and operational metrics in real time in order to manage anomalies or system weaknesses within those individual applications or subsystems. Observability, though, is a broader story. So in the broader context of distributed computing, observability is tied to telemetry, where applications or other systems would generate flows of data, whether it's log files, metrics, or traces, and then we would have technology that can leverage that telemetry in order to gain insights into the behavior and to any issues that we need to resolve. The mainframe is a bit broader of a story where we're really looking at the context of the mainframe overall, because now we have different applications within the mainframe and across the broader environment, including the mainframe, that have to work together in order to support the business requirements. So it's no longer just looking at what's going on in the mainframe from a system by system or application by application basis, but it's more understanding the broader context of how we're supporting the broader landscape of what's going on in the mainframe. So part of the story is the context, and another part of the story is the real-time behavior that is now necessary. Just like with the mobile banking app story, people aren't going to wait for batch processes to complete. They want to know how much money is in their account right now, and they want an accurate number, right? So that real-time requirement is now becoming more and more a core part of what everybody expects from all of their systems, including the mainframe. So we can't rely upon monitoring that it is not real time, right? We need some sort of a real-time observability capability in order to address issues quickly and ideally proactively, right? Preventing issues from adversely impacting end users or the business. So, and then we also have to deal with the fact that the staffing is evolving, right? The generational shift as older mainframe experts retire and a new, the new millennials come in more comfortable with a new set of tooling, new set of capabilities. And the mainframe is just one of many systems for these new professionals that now they have to work in this modern environment. So it's bringing a modern environment to the mainframe management story that is both real time and maintains or is able to address the broader context, the business context of the mainframe in context of this broader story of what the business is trying to accomplish.
Given, these new workloads, these new interactions, what new strategies or methodologies can operators use to effectively define and monitor normal behavior as a baseline?
So I think there's a piece that says today the mainframe produces loads of data, and we've done that for years. That's where all of this monitoring stuff comes. But newer tools, newer techniques. So what we've seen the rise of over the last few years is technologies like machine learning and those kind of pieces being applied to that data to try and add that insight to turn the volume of data. It was kind of interesting. Jason was saying about how, from an observability point of view on other platforms, that's about getting additional telemetry. I think in the mainframe space, the subtlety is a lot of the telemetry is kind of already there, but it's just this almost like wave and tsunami of data that people just throw at you and turning that really into information. So the rise of analytics, particularly to go away and help understand that and to deliver insight and context to that data is really part of, okay, what is normal? 20, 30 years ago, the guy who was doing the diagnostics probably sat and looked at one system and it had a very defined pattern. These days, that doesn't exist. That one person is probably looking after tens, maybe hundreds of systems, and those patterns are far less regular as people do things, like you said, Jason, there about the whole, okay, I'm going to go and check it on my phone and that kind of stuff. It's not a 9-to-5 person that's using a green screen that's sat in an office and those kind of pieces. So those kind of things really seem to be certainly where we're seeing, we're going and a number of places in the industry are going to really help get that baseline and to help people understand, okay, in all of this data, what is it that is different to what I normally see? And therefore, maybe that's a source of a problem or a potential problem. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of additional things that around this space that the workloads these days are no longer your typical workloads that you could predict in with any sense of confidence, shall we say, than where you were probably 10, 15 years ago. Because of the growth of hybrid applications, cloud-based applications, the mainframe is just one part of the machine here. It's just one part of the kind of the gearing system. And yes, there are so many so many metrics flowing around the system, whether it's coming from the mainframe, whether it's coming from distributed, whether it's coming from cloud services, whether it's coming from your edge devices, etc. Being able to, it's almost like that, there's a sea of data, right? And the magic has to be using things like AI, using machine learning to not only predict kind of that cause and effect that's kind of happening, but also, I used to call this kind of seasonal variation. And I think this is where the dynamic baseline piece is coming in. There are workloads that change. There are workloads that, based on different dynamics of what's happening out in maybe what happens in the market, etc., will drive different in the financial markets, will drive different kind of performances of hybrid applications, which can in turn cause a knock-on effect through the rest of the system. I think I always look at like similarities out in either industry or sport or wherever, and the biggest similarity I can see with others in with the mainframe and metrics, etc. Take Formula One. All right, so I watched Formula One at the weekend, the Bahrain Grand Prix, absolutely fantastic. And you think about all the telemetry that is in these cars, just to make 50 odd laps to go around a circuit. The reality is, though, the metrics, there's a vast sea of metrics, yet there is an army of deep specialist people who are looking at their particular part of the screen to understand whether that car is kind of going in the right speed, or it's about to kind of, heat or overheat or whatever. We don't have that luxury on our platforms, all right? We probably used to, but AI has got to help us take those metrics and really kind of create sense out of them, whether it's baselining, dynamic baselining, whether it's joining the relationships and context of those events and those metrics together. We're entering an entirely new world now where AI has to come to the fore and help us work out really what's happening with the sea of data that we're seeing on the platforms.
Yeah, so Alan, you talked about baselining, and Dave, you talked about baselining and dynamic baselining. I think this is worth spending a little more time on, because when you talk about traditional monitoring, it's often within the context of pre-established baselines, right? You have a sense as to what the mainframe is supposed to be doing with that particular system or application, how it's supposed to behave, and then you establish a firm baseline, and then you compare the actual behavior to the baseline, and that's how you can tell if something's gone wrong. But with dynamic baselining, all bets are off, right? So how does that work? How can you have a dynamic baseline and it still be a baseline? What does that mean? And what does that mean for monitoring now that we have dynamic baselines?
Well, I think it sits in a family of capabilities. So I think there are some things that you will still always monitor statically. How much CSA you've got, or something really technical like that. You don't want the number to go over 95% or whatever, because at that point your world's going to end. So those ones will always exist. But there are a number of metrics where you really want to be sure of, well, hang on a minute, this is not normal. This is not my normal set of behavior. This is not where I expect the system to be. And in those instances, it may or it may not be a problem. It might just be the way that the workload's changed. But really understanding that, back 15, 20 years ago, the sea of people that used to, or the army of people that used to look after the system, they would be constantly knowing and understanding, this number's good or this number's bad. What we've seen, and certainly as we've dealt with a load of customers, is, they defined lots and lots of these static alerts, these kind of threshold pieces, and then that became almost a job in itself of just managing what all of your thresholds were. In many cases, they couldn't do that. So the addition of AI and machine learning to really understand the flow is the piece that then takes away a lot of that overhead for managing it, and also means that the alerting and the alarming and is something a little bit out in my system really matters. And then I think Dave mentioned kind of the next level on from that, which is, okay, for some of these metrics, what we really want to do is look at the interrelationships that go between, and how do I understand how all of those things flow together. And that's a more complicated model. That's a more sophisticated way of doing detection, and certainly, advanced detection of problems. But that's kind of if you like, that nirvana state, which says, look, I just want a system that manages itself. I want the system to tell me, by the way, guys, something's going wrong. and really tell me early. And I think, in a modern monitoring observability picture, you need all of these capabilities layered together. What we're looking at and what we're trying to work towards is that, okay, how do I get all of these things to sit really nicely together to truly turn that into what I call an observable system? So these newer, certainly the operations staff who have multiple platforms to deal with, don't have to deal with the complexity and the specialities that go with the mainframe. So when they have an alarm, when they have an alert, when they have a problem, they really know what to do and where to go and how to go forward with it.
Yeah, I think this is one of the key differences between observability and monitoring on the mainframe as well. Because observability tools seek to define what behavior is normal for the mainframe as a whole, or system or application in question as well at a given moment in time. But it's really that understanding how the overall mainframe is supposed to be behaving. So instead of a pre-configured definition of normal, which you just can't do across everything that's going on, right? It may be application by application you might be able to, but not for the whole mainframe. Observability tools can discern normal behavior from the overall context of the performance of the mainframe. So it's a moving target, but leveraging machine learning and other modern technologies, we now have tools that can deal with the moving target. And that's really why it's important to emphasize observability over just monitoring, where monitoring is still important, but observability takes sort of the next step. So I'd like to ask two of you as well. So how do you see the differences between traditional system monitoring and observability on the mainframe, and how do they work together in particular?
Well, I think I'll jump into this one, Alan. We have a plethora of monitoring capabilities on the platform. We have that raw data, as I kind of said earlier. We have a lot of that raw data, and we know that. And I'm just going to come back to your point actually on some of the dynamic aspects as well. Everything's changing. Our applications change. You could go 10, 15 years ago and you could say, I can predict exactly my workload on the mainframe. I can predict, therefore, a certain amount of monitoring is necessary because I know all the moving parts. And I know if this goes up by a certain percentage, it will cause these to go up by a certain percentage. And bingo, I've nailed it. Things were, I'll say predictable in the sense of really where they are today. Where we are today is it's not only, yes, there's a lot of change on the mainframe because, we have whole new DevOps solutions and people are kind of developing for the mainframe. We have Java, we have Linux, we have a whole new set of workloads. But the outside effects, the applications change. The usage patterns of the applications change. There is so much change we have to react to that the system has to not only take the monitoring data that we have of all the various aspects and facets of on-platform, off-platform, cloud, etc., but being able to apply sense and cause and relationships to, if this number goes out of a certain threshold, then it's going to have a knock-on effect against all these potential applications. I saw one example recently when I was in the UK of one customer was able to, through the very smallest effect on a mainframe resource, be able to see the full end-to-end impact of that small, I would say, whether it's a shortened storage, that's not necessarily small, but a slight change in behavior, a slight increase in response time. They were able to see the knock-on effect to the rest of their business. That you could take it all the way back to retail banking, you could take it all the way back to the insurance service, etc. And how could they do that? Because they've got the relationships mapped, they've got the service levels mapped, they've got the service relationships mapped, and they can understand how those metrics work together and what those metrics ultimately then allow you to observe and to manage and to maintain, because that's where your SLAs are, right? Alan?
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right there, Dave, and I think that's part of the piece of, when you talk about monitoring, what you're normally talking about is bits and bytes and a KICS region and a DB2 region and all those kind of things. When you move it on and you're starting to talk about the observability, you're really starting to talk far more about service and service delivery and capabilities that you're delivering out to your business, and able to have a far better conversation both with the other parts of your organization that are delivering that overall end service, that kind of that hybrid delivery model that sits in, you can actually participate properly in the room, and you're not sat in the corner spouting what sounds like everybody Klingon because you're talking about a particular queue that's sat in Kix that does this and does that and does the other and all that kind of stuff. It helps you with that, but it also helps you really, really talk to your business and being responsive to your end user, and the service that is delivered. Like you guys have both said, these days it's far more likely that your end user is your real customer. It's a lot less like, okay, yeah, they're on the end of a phone that's talking to somebody, or they've wandered into a branch or whatever else. Your end user is almost certainly the person that's sat there. That's part of the digitization of business. And so anything that you can do to make sure that that service is delivered correctly and promptly, and when there's a challenge, you can recognize it and address it early. That's the real key as you come in from an observability piece to get that joined up.
So we've talked about machine learning here and there and AI ops, so I wanted to spend a little more time on that topic. The way I see machine learning very, very basically is it's a way of discerning anomalies in large quantities of data. So AI ops leverages machine learning to look at all of this telemetry, all this information coming from our systems, and say, well, what are the anomalies? What are the things we have to worry about that may indicate some kind of problem? But simply indicating that there could be an anomaly is not the same thing as pinning down the actual cause of a problem. And then even if you were to identify the root cause of a problem, you still want to be able to either prevent that problem from adversely impacting the business and its end users, or at the very least recover very quickly from that problem. So it's a question of resilience, right? So AIOps is part of the story because it will help you identify the anomalies, but you really have to go further than that. So definitely want to get your folks' take on sort of the role AI ops plays in respect to traditional monitoring tools, observability tools, and then we should get to this discussion of mainframe resilience as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think the way I always think about it, Jason, is there's kind of three phases to any problem. The first one is, telling someone that there is a problem, then helping them work out where that problem is, and then fixing it. And then probably the fourth bit, the thing that closes that loop, is how do I make sure it never happens again, sort of thing. So I think when we've talked about things like machine learning, that's all about detection of problem. That's detection of things that are a little bit out of normal and those kind of pieces. What you then need is additional capabilities to give people the right information to help them make a decision. Is really the key that fits in, and this is where certainly from an observability point of view, that really, really matters. So tools and techniques, things like decision tree analysis, those kind of areas where you pull in a lot of additional data, you pull them back, or you give custom displays of information that say, look, I see something in DB2. Let me show you some information about your DB2 subsystem. Maybe let's tell you a bit about the Kix region. Let's tell you about the ZOS, whatever it is that are relevant to that to help you make a decision. Because what you really ultimately want is enough information pulled together that either a person can make a decision, or really ideally the AI that sits in the system can do it. And then it's okay, help me fix it. So maybe give you a suggested resolution for it, maybe give you an easy button that says go away and kill. Maybe there's a button that says, actually, yeah, do you know what? I fixed your problem. And next time, would you like me to do this next time I recognize the issue, and that kind of stuff? And really, really pull that back around so you automate around it. And also, things like, okay, you've had a problem and I can't help you in terms of doing that, but let me capture all the diagnostics so you don't get this situation, and the one we see on the mainframes where you have a major issue and they bring back the service quite quickly and everyone says, oh, what was it? And it was like, well, we don't actually know. And they go, okay, well, what information have I got? What diagnostics did you capture? Went, well, we were just trying to bring back the service. Well, capture of all of the diagnostic information so you can really step through that root cause afterwards is also part of that picture and part of that piece. So it is that, okay, we've got AI, we've got the monitoring and the observability piece, and then really that automation, that engine that allows you to take action and to do things in a certain way and captures it, is really fundamentally linked into how do I make sure that I have this system that, kind of self-recognizes it's got a problem and then self-heals and makes sure that it better and stronger as you go forward.
I think that self-healing part, Alan, that's going to be incredibly interesting, because I think the whole application, Jason, the whole application of AI in the AI ops space and all this, with all the data coming together, obviously there is an aspect of trust in AI, of course. All right, there's an aspect of, do I trust it to go heal? Do I trust it to take an action? And I think I don't necessarily think we're there yet, but clearly that would probably be, certainly if you look in your crystal ball, that would be the desire for these issues to never really crop up and never surface, and the system automatically heal itself. But I think the first phase we'll go through over the next year or so is, and I'm going to bring in that what's the overly used term, the Chat GPT scenario, the whole Gen AI space. I think is going to be incredibly interesting in this, with the topic of how do I know what to do? There's an issue in the system. It's got a relationship. It's going to affect my retail banking if I don't do anything about it. What do I do about it? And I think whether it's a chat interface or whether it's kind of a rules-based interface, etc., prompt-based structure, etc., but that whole Gen AI of being able to, well, let's take an analysis of if this happened before, what did we do about it before? How did we resolve it? Did it resolve the situation? There is tribal knowledge, all right, and that exists. Whether we leverage that is to be determined. But I think using things like Gen AI to help guide the various situations that happen, let's say within an application availability scenario. If something happens here, something is going to happen here. Now, what guidance can I provide you as an operator to go and resolve it? And that guidance may be different. We talked about the dynamic side of all this. One action today may not be the same action tomorrow based on other kind of situations that are happening. So I'm super excited to see what and how Gen AI can help us resolve and guide more of the still required user interaction here to resolve the problem, how it can guide more accurate resolutions. Because then I think there's a learning base. That learning base becomes more accurate. And once it becomes more accurate, then maybe we're open to, well, just have the system go do it. Okay, the answer's right. We start to trust this. We start to believe that the right data's in here and it's accurate. Now I'm ready to let it kind of self-heal as necessary. We're entering a fantastic era.
Yeah, so on one hand, we have this new context of digital business, right? We're putting, mainframe capabilities into the hands of end users. We also have the power of AI, both to address some of these operational challenges, but also become operational challenges because the enterprises are rolling out whole new AI-based strategies that depend upon the mainframe as well. And this is basically creating new focus on mainframe resilience. So now resilience, traditionally the mainframe has been regarded as a very highly resilient system, right? It's a high availability system. It's reputed to never go down, right? Some mainframes have been working for decades with zero downtime. And this is now what we've come to expect from mainframes, and one of the reasons why organizations depend on them for mission critical workloads. But now we're throwing all this new stuff at the mainframe. We're throwing the AI, and we're throwing all this digital business and these dynamic workloads and real-time requirements. And as a result, problems are more likely to occur. And this is just the nature of modern technology, is that stuff happens, right? So now we're doubling down on mainframe resilience, and this is becoming especially important. And it's even becoming a regulatory requirement. So in Europe, there's the Digital Operational Resilience Act, or DORA. Now, don't confuse this with the DevOps metrics DORA. That's a different acronym. This is the Digital Operational Resilience Act, which essentially requires a level of business resilience from enterprises in Europe, but there are similar safe harbor laws in the US and around the world where it's not just a good thing to have resilient systems that can recover quickly from problems and a way of coming up with ways to prevent those from happening, but it's now a regulatory requirement. So it's becoming something that has to be formalized in the way that operators do their jobs and how they achieve this resilience. So I definitely want the take of the two of you. We're running short on time, so perhaps this would be the last question. So how do you see how observability tools help with this broader context of mainframe resilience? And what are some of the best practices you would recommend for organizations who are trying to put together these formal resilience strategies, whether it's because of regulatory requirements or simply because it makes for good business?
I think resilience overall, you're right. The platform has been resilience. It's been its buzzword for years. I think there are a number of things that affect resilience. Clearly, there's poorly configured systems. My gosh, let's even think about that. By the way, AI can help us with that as well. There's applications that change and are unknown in terms of their new profile, and they're introduced into production. That and AI can help us with that, and insights and observability can help us with that. I think as you then go into probably the hopefully unexpected and very infrequent resilience challenges around cybersecurity and cyber vulnerability, observability and underlying monitoring of let's say the data access patterns of applications, absolutely critical. You have to wire all these together into a solution that gives you the ability to really deliver 99.999% availability, all right, which we've had on the platform. And one of the things that I'm incredibly excited about is that to do true resilience, yes, AI has to be used, but AI at the point of that data being kind of created. And if it's done at the point of the data creation, you can be more reactive, you can understand, you can get better insights from it. And the Z16 platform, which I think is the most successful platform IBM's delivered onto the mainframe, has embedded AI. So you've got DORA driving everything that we do, or whether it's safe harbor. You've got resilience is the buzzword. You've got observability. You've got a platform that does it for you as well, with acceleration and AI in the Telum chip. This is harness those pieces together with the right strategy and understand what is important. And I think we have all the pieces of the puzzle to make an absolutely fantastic story here. Alan.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you, Dave. And I think the most important message, like you say, with all of that, Jason, is yes, the mainframe's designed to be always up and always resilient and all that kind of stuff. Lots of organizations base their resilience on we're just going to limit change. We're going to really, really constrain change. That doesn't move your organization forward from a digital business point of view. Don't be scared of change. Adapt and build strategies around doing change in a fast way, but a safe and sensible way. There are tools, there are capabilities there, tying automatically, things like testing and baselining of applications and all of those kind of things in as part of your profile, managing how you do, DB2 change management, all of those kind of pieces. All of it really, really matters to continue and build it from an end-to-end perspective. Really, really, really go forward and embrace that change and evolve your strategy as you go forward. Because as you do that, and then you start to bring in some of the really exciting tools, techniques, technologies that we've talked about today, and Dave was saying about the Z16 stuff, most of those capabilities are there, but they do need you to really think about, in a very deliberate manner, where you're going and where you want to be, to make sure you can do that. We work with organizations all of the time, and ones that are really embracing change on the platform are finding it a fantastic place to use it really as that engine to drive their digital business. The weight of data sits on a mainframe, the core capability, and I think most organizations would say that their real value in their business today is their core business data and how that drives forward. You can use it and you can do it on platform and with those capabilities, but you need to think about how you manage it as you go forward.
I'm going to flip this around briefly. And Jason, what are your thoughts on the subject?
Well, I think that we have to treat operational resilience as a core requirement of the mainframe, where before it was something that we had to add to our discussion, right? How are we going to manage the mainframe, make sure there's no problems? But now it's becoming a core requirement, right? That we have all of these capabilities. So we have this real-time behavior, the digital business, and the increasing AI capabilities, and all of this has to be based on this context of operational resilience. And this is where observability is so important, right? Because now the operators of the mainframe now have to basically have 24/7 hands-on capabilities in order to keep the mainframe up and running. Of course, we can't burn them out, right? They have to leverage the right tools and the right capabilities to achieve this operational resilience, but that's now becoming essentially a core requirement, even more so than it always was.
This has been a great conversation. I almost hate to end it, but all good things must come to an end. And I know the three of you could keep going. Jason, Alan, Dave, thanks for joining us. Thanks for this great discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to everyone listening. As always, I'll include some links in the show notes for some helpful resources, so be sure to check those out. And until next time, take care. You're listening to The Modern Mainframe, BMC's intelligent C optimization and transformation podcast, covering the latest trends and issues in the mainframe and how BMC AIME solutions can help you make change your competitive advantage.